Sirens are wailing in the background as an injured mech stumbles through the streets, favoring a wound on his side. He ducks into an alley, laughing maniacally as he bleeds out on the pavement. A cloaked figure approaches, an arm outstretched, causing a drop of mech's blood to hover in midair. The figure speaks, offering to keep him alive if mech swears his allegiance. The being asks him to choose. With no other options, mech agrees. The figure extends its hand, and mech lets out a scream of what seems to be intense agony. The officers in pursuit turn into the street, only to find that the fence mech had been leaning on has transformed into a wall of flowing blood. Chan, a novice monk, awakens from his meditative vision. In his mind's eye, he sees a city in flames, people dying in the streets, and towering buildings engulfed in fire. A monstrous figure runs through the chaos, with a cloaked figure leading the destruction at the forefront. Chan gathers his supplies, grabs his staff, and prepares to leave the room. Before he can set out, he's stopped by an older monk. The monk addresses him, and Chan explains that he must stop Witchian before it's too late. The master tells him that Witchian is gone and is no longer a threat. Chan replies that his father has found a way back to this realm and will not stop until there is hell on earth. The master responds that if what he says is true, then the necromancer has returned. Chan, with determination in his eyes, says that if what he saw is true, he has to go. He gives the master a respectful salute before descending the steps of the majestic temple. Jake arrives at the Bangkok airport with his wife and daughter. He tells Prang that he's glad they're doing this. As they walk through the airport, Jake's phone rings, and Prang reminds him that he shouldn't be on the phone since they've just arrived at their destination and are on vacation. Jake answers the call anyway, continuing on as they move through the airport. Their daughter Lu asks if they'll be staying with her grandmother. Prang replies that they have their own hotel, as grandma isn't used to a lively household. They get into a van and begin to take in the city sights through the windows, with Jake still on the phone. When they arrive at a luxurious hotel, they check into their room. Lu excitedly walks to the wall of windows, points to the river, and asks when they can go see it. Prang responds, as soon as your dad is ready. Jake hangs up the phone and tells them, I'm all yours. They board small boats that pass through the city markets, soaking in the sights. Jake ends another call, and Prang, frustrated, tells him he might as well go back to the room and conduct his business there. Jake replies that it's his job and they need him, to which she retorts that they are his family and they need him too. They get off the boat, and she comments that he wasn't on the phone as much when he was a street cop. He pulls her into a hug as they walk, telling her he's working on it. She smiles and reminds him that life isn't a destination, it's about what happens in here and there. He kisses her gently, but she smiles, admonishing him not to change the subject. Suddenly, Prang notices that Lu isn't beside them, and panic sets in. They start running through the market, frantically searching for her. Jake finally spots her on a bridge, where they find Lu playing with a butterfly. Sitting next to Chan, Prang scolds Lu for wandering off, then they both salute the monk respectfully and thank him for looking after her. Lu tells Jake that Chan says he knows him, but Jake insists they've never met before. Jake is taken aback when Chan calls him by name and holds him back, revealing that their meeting wasn't a coincidence. Chan tells him they were destined to meet and that Jake is the keeper of the gate. He warns Jake that great challenges lie ahead and he will lose everything. But through the darkness, Chan says Jake will find light in the love of his family, which will ultimately free him. Jake thanks the monk for protecting his daughter, but insists he must be mistaken and that he's not even from this country. With that, he rejoins his family, and they leave together. Jake is at the mall having ice cream with his daughter, talking about her desire to learn karate like her parents. She makes him pinky swear to attend all of her practices, telling him it's the highest form of promise. Prang walks over, finishing a phone call, and scolds Jake for getting Lu a chocolate flavor. She takes Lu to the bathroom to clean up. Meanwhile, Mech, wearing a long black coat, strolls casually through the mall with a rifle held close at his side. As he passes by, he glances up and waves at Lu as she walks with her mother. Suddenly, he begins shooting people at random, and pandemonium breaks out. Jake rushes to find his family and tells them to hide in the bathroom, promising to meet them back in the room. Though they plead with him to stay, he insists on helping the others. They run back inside as police begin to arrive at the mall. Jake goes down to the main floor and stealthily picks up a discarded gun. Mech picks up a fallen doll and begins talking to it. Jake comes out of his hiding spot and orders him to drop the weapon. Mech mocks him, commenting on his beautiful family, alternating between talking to Jake and the doll and appearing completely insane. Jake returns fire, hitting Mech, and tells him, it's over. An officer arrives behind Mech, and Jake identifies himself as a cop. Mech says that he wants to personally thank Jake for killing him, adding that the ritual is now complete. Mech tells him that his master said the keeper would be here, and Jake appears shocked by the title. Mech jokes that he expected him to be taller and laughs maniacally as his cheeks seem to heat up from within. An explosion erupts from within him just as Jake warns everyone to get back. The explosion rocks the building, creating the face of a demon in the air as flames seem to fly in different directions over the city skyline. Prang and Lu come out of the bathroom and head outside to ask the police for help, only to be met with the sight of people viciously attacking each other. They run back inside and move between the racks of clothing, but people begin attacking them at random. Prang fights off several men, and they run, trying to find a moment of reprieve. Jake regains consciousness just as the fallen cop awakens, and they both wonder how they're still alive and where the bodies went. Meanwhile, Prang runs out onto the street and sees people killing each other randomly, seemingly possessed. Confused, they run inside a deserted store and hide in an aisle. Prang assures Lu that Jake is okay and will meet them at the hotel, as he promised. The cop begins to panic about the explosion that came from the man and the missing bodies. Jake tells him to stay calm, but the cop calls out, asking if someone is there. They see a woman with her back turned. Despite Jake's warning to raise his gun, the cop lowers his weapon and tries to approach her, using a reassuring voice. The woman turns around, appearing possessed, and stabs him in the chest. Jake shoots her repeatedly, but it doesn't slow her down. She continues to advance and attacks him. He manages to disentangle himself and hides, but she finds him again. Another struggle ensues, and he barely escapes alive. Prang tries to call her mother to check on her, but realizes she has no signal. She decides to check the signal on the phone by the counter. Meanwhile, Lu waits in the middle of the aisle as a possessed man enters the store and begins searching for her. Prang manages to attack him, and they rush out of the store together. Jake searches the area for Prang and Lu but can't find them. The possessed woman finds him again, but he manages to tie her to a post and escape. Meanwhile, Prang fights her way through the streets with Lu by her side. They come across a bus with normal people inside and rush in, only to discover that the driver left his keys in a bag he dropped outside. When she begs the passengers to retrieve it, they seem unwilling to risk going out to get it. In the mall, Jake notices that the possessed woman has escaped her restraints. He follows her at a distance and watches as she walks into a wall of blood and is consumed. Meanwhile, on the bus, Prang goes outside to grab the keys. She picks up the bag and runs toward the bus. Just as she's about to board, a man grabs her from behind and pulls her between two other buses. Other possessed men begin to fight with him, allowing her to break free and dart into the bus. Prang holds onto Lu as the bus moves through the streets. Jake comes out of the mall to find a giant fiery demon stalking the streets and runs to avoid encountering it. The bus comes to a stop, and the driver informs them that this is as far as they can go. They step off into a seemingly deserted street littered with crashed vehicles and start moving towards the hotel. Jake runs, trying to avoid being captured by the demon-like creature, while Chan opens a side door in the street and leads him inside. Chan tells Jake that if he wants to see his family again, he needs to follow him. Jake asks where they are, and Chan replies that they're in his house, in the hindrance. He invites Jake to sit and explains that they're in another reality, a place between heaven and hell for those who have lost their way. He tells Jake he's in the hindrance because he's being held accountable for his actions. Jake seems confused and asks what those actions are. Chan asks him what the shooter in the mall said, and Jake replies that he called him the Keeper. Chan then explains that Jake is the keeper of the gates of hell and has helped Mech complete the blood ritual. In doing so, Jake opened the gates of hell and unleashed demons to roam the earth. These demons are possessing the weak and collecting souls. Chan warns him that it's only a matter of time before his father Wichian, a very powerful necromancer, returns. Wichian knew where Jake would be and sent Mech there deliberately as a sacrifice. When Jake killed Mech, he completed the blood ritual that opened the gates of hell. Chan tells Jake that there's still time before the gates fully open, but if they are open fully, there's no turning back. Since Jake opened the gates, he's the only one who can close them. Jake asks why he's the keeper, and Chan explains that it's because Jake's mother died in childbirth, and he was born in her blood during the blood moon. Jake tries to deny that he's the keeper and insists that he just wants to find his family. Chan reassures him that his family is on their way back to the hotel, but he won't be able to find them without Chan's help. He stresses that they're wasting time and that Wichian grows stronger with every soul taken. Jake agrees to follow Chan to close the gates, and in return, Chan promises to help him find his family. Prang and Lu arrive at the hotel, which looks run down. They pass by the dead receptionist and have to fend off the attacks from possessed employees as they make their way down the hallway and into their room. Looking through the window at the burning skyscrapers, they try the phone, only to find it's dead. Prang sits down, holding Lu, and tells her they're going to wait for Jake. Chan and Jake walk through the streets. Chan explains that they're going to find Mech, who will lead them to his father, and from there, they can locate the gates. Jake asks why Wichian needs Mech, and Chan replies that it's because Wichian is powerless in Jake's world. Chan narrates that before Wichian became a necromancer, he was a monk serving his master. Driven by greed, he stole two scriptures from his master, the scripture of art eternity and the scripture of soul absorption. These scriptures were not meant for eyes that were unprepared, and as he read them, they began to consume him. The more knowledge he gained, the more it devoured his physical body. Wichian realized his own body was failing and grew desperate. Using the knowledge from the scriptures, he attempted to possess the body of his son and take it for himself. However, his wife intervened and saved their son. Wichian's soul was exiled from this reality, losing his power in the physical world. In his failed attempt at possession, he left Chan the knowledge of the scriptures. Jake hears a girl scream coming from the building next to them, and, despite Chan's warning that it's too late to save her, he runs inside. He makes his way to the roof, fighting off creatures that appear in his path along the way. There, he finds a girl. He remembers seeing her at the mall and trying to warn her before she was shot. She recalls the mall when he mentions it and admits she was calling her boyfriend, whom she has been cheating on. Suddenly, they're pursued by the giant fiery demon. It grabs her and consumes her. Chan tells Jake that the lost souls in this reality often don't remember their transition or how they arrived. He explains that the beast devoured the girl's soul and that the horrors in the hindrance do a good job of feeding on the lost. Jake realizes that he died in the explosion and becomes confused, wondering how he could help his family when he's a ghost. Chan tells him he's able to be in the hindrance due to knowledge from the scriptures. Jake struggles to understand what he was being punished for that led him to the hindrance. Chan tells him he was very ambitious in his job, to which Jake responds that he did it so he could reach a position that would allow him to spend more time with his family. Chan tells him that, despite his ambition, he failed to spend time with them. Jake asks how he can help find Mech if he's just a ghost in that realm. Chan explains that they would need a portal and a vessel to return to Jake's world. Prang is roused from her sleep by the sound of someone banging on the door and calling her name, urging her to open it. She opens the door to find an imposter who looks like Jake, and a look of relief crosses her face. Chan and Jake find a portal in a building filled with winged demons. Chan fights them off as they make their way through a room filled with other creatures. They finally pass through the portal into the physical world. Jake walks past a mirror and sees his reflection. It's another man. Chan tells him it was the best he could do on short notice, adding that a reflection reveals the true identity of the body. Jake realizes he is a spirit inhabiting a different body, and he feels the pain in his chest, the same pain from the mortal wound that killed the man whose body he now occupies. In the hotel room, Jake's body stands in front of the window, revealing his true reflection as Mech. Prang tells him they need to leave the city, but he replies that they'll go somewhere else that is safe. When she asks where, he gets agitated by all of her questions and moves across the room. He stands before a mirror looking at his true self. Lou calls him dad and asks if he's okay. He replies that he's not okay and that he's been very hurt. Chan tells Jake they are close, but a regular gun won't be effective when they find Mech, since his current body will already be dead. He explains that Jake only has 2 weapons that can harm Mech. Chan hands him what appears to be a gun, but it's an ancient flintlock. He explains that it summons bullets capable of killing Mech if he shoots him with it. Chan also gives him another weapon, a nanometanite, composed of 9 metallic elements. This weapon cancels out dark magic. He tells Jake that he is forbidden to take a life, but that rule doesn't apply to him. As they continue moving, Jake notices they are near his hotel. He asks Chan why they're there and quickly concludes that Mech must be with his family. Without hesitation, Jake starts running toward the hotel. Lou asks Mech, who is an imposter with Jake's appearance, if he needs to go to the hospital. He replies that the hospitals have been overrun and are burning down. She asks if it's because of the crazy people, and he confirms it. Prang then asks if he wants to lie down until they can get some help. Mech tells them they don't have time, that the crazy people will be here soon. Lou points out that he's hit his head, and he assures her that he'll make it better, handing her the mangled doll he has been holding. The phone rings, and Lou tells him the phone is dead. He replies that it's working now, answers the call, and begins writing down the information he receives from the caller. Jake and Chan move through the hotel, arriving at the room to find it deserted. Jake spots the doll on the couch and picks it up. He asks Chan why Mech would go after his family, and Chan replies that Mech is a twisted soul, beyond any understanding or reason. Chan then sees the note and tells Jake they need to hurry. Jake hears Lou scream and rushes out of the room, finding his family standing in the lobby. He feels a wave of relief at finally finding them, but suddenly, he notices his appearance has shifted back to the body he has possessed, and they don't recognize him anymore. Mech strikes him on the back of the head and jumps on him. Jake asks why he's doing this, and Mech replies that it's a fair trade since Jake took his life. Jake tells him to leave his family alone, but Mech retorts that he doesn't deserve them, having failed to protect them when the gates of hell opened. Prang, still perceiving him as Jake, tells Mech they should leave. Lou shouts for Jake to get away from the monster. Mech replies that he'll protect her from the scary monster, and claims to Jake that his family is his now. He then taunts him, asking him what kind of father abandons his family in a situation like that and goes off to be a hero. They begin to fight, and Jake manages to stab Mech, but is thrown into the pool before he can shoot him. They struggle in the water, with Mech attempting to drown Jake. Prang cocks the gun, unknowingly aiming at her husband. Mech, an imposter resembling Jake, tells her to shoot the other man. Jake desperately tries to convince them it's him. Lou asks if it's truly him and insists he promise. He raises his hand in a pinky promise, and just as Lou realizes he's her father, Prang shoots him. He wakes up in the hindrance and is attacked by a demon. Mech emerges from the water, telling them it's time to go. Lou turns to her mother and says it isn't her father, that he's tricking them. Mech steps aside as the wall of blood parts, and he invites them inside. Jake wakes up, and Chan reassures him that he's okay. He explains that he found the location mentioned in the note Mech left at the hotel. It was most likely where Jake's family had been taken. Chan tells him that Wichian is waiting for him since Jake is the only one who can close the gates of hell. They arrive at the location and find the fiery gates, where Wichian is preparing to fully open them. Jake says he needs to get to his family, whatever the cost. Chan tells him that first, they need to find the portal within and locate another powerful vessel for Jake. Mech brings Prang and Lou into the center of the portal at the location, and Wichian commends him for doing an excellent job by bringing them just as he requested. Wichian says that Lou's blood will be enough to complete the ritual. Prang tries to escape with Lou but is quickly surrounded by more figures cloaked like Wichian. He moves toward Prang to introduce himself and removes the mask from his eyes. Chan makes sure Jake has the weapon in hand and asks if he's ready. Then, he uses his staff to open the portal and transport them there. Mech holds Prang captive as the men surround the fiery portal, with Lou hovering unconscious above it. Wichian, holding a dagger, proclaims that with the Keeper's blood running through Lou's veins, they are strong enough to complete the ritual her father started. Raising the dagger high above her, he declares that with this sacrifice and the opening of the gates, he will claim the souls within to serve him as God. The ritual is interrupted when Jake enters the room and begins taking out the men one by one. Witchian orders them to send Jake back into the hindrance, and they rush forward, only to be expertly eliminated by Jake. Appearing enraged, Mech hands Prang off to another man. Prang shouts a warning to Jake as Mech rushes towards him. A fierce fight ensues, with Jake struggling to gain the upper hand. Meanwhile, Prang escapes the man's grasp and grabs a discarded weapon, shooting Witchian. The man attacks her, and she kills him with a knife. Jake throws his knife at another man going after Prang, but the distraction costs him. Mech gains the upper hand and injures Jake before turning towards Prang. Prang alerts Jake and throws him the fallen weapon. He shoots Mech, who awakens in the hindrance. As he rises, the giant demon approaches and devours his soul. Chan approaches his father, and Witchian tells him he can't kill him. Chan replies that, unlike his father, he honors his oath. Suddenly, Jake stabs Witchian from behind. Witchian tells Chan that he knows there's only one way to close the gates. Jake asks what he means, and Witchian explains that Jake has to pass through the gates in order to close them, and that he'll end up in hell. Witchian disintegrates, and Chan apologizes to Jake, saying he was trying to find another way. Jake walks up the platform to his family and apologizes to Prang. Chan warns him that they're running out of time. Jake tells Prang that he has to go and that it's the only way to save them both. He admits he was afraid to love, and that fear kept him from being there for her. He says he was being punished for it, but he's not afraid anymore. He gives her a farewell kiss. Lou asks if he'll be back, and Jake Pinky swears that he'll find his way back to them. Chan gives Jake his word that he'll look out for his family. Jake tells him that he will find a way back, and Chan confirms that he has no doubt. His journey is just beginning. Jake walks into the fire and is consumed by it as the gate closes. Prang takes Lou to her grandmother's house, and they fiercely embrace, reunited at last. The scene wraps as a woman walks into the location of the portal and reopens the fiery gates. Thanks for watching.